Hello and welcome to Live Now, the info show for technology and trends. My name is Ben Friedman and we are here in beautiful, sunny Phoenix, Arizona today at the Wireless LAN Professionals Conference 2020. And it is beautiful. It's February here, but it's like 75, 78 degrees outside. People are outside, they're wearing shorts. If you haven't been to Phoenix in February, you ought to come by because it's fantastic. And we are lucky enough this afternoon to be joined by none other than Dennis Burrell from Ventev. Dennis, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So I have talked to a bunch of the folks here, the Wi-Fi folks here, and a lot of them make software, a lot of them make hardware. I don't know a lot about Ventev. Why don't you tell the folks, who is Ventev, where does it come from, what does it do?
Okay. Ventev is, we're known as Ventev Wireless Infrastructure. We're owned by Tesco Technologies, and we are an ecosystem provider for radio manufacturers. So we don't do any of the active gear, we just do all of the ecosystem surrounding the active gear. So we support their products with enclosures, antennas, and cable solutions, and also power systems. So nothing active, but we like to call ourselves the ecosystem provider for the active gear.
Now, and where are you guys based out of?
Ventev is based out of San Antonio, Texas.
Beautiful place, love the Riverwalk.
But Tesco, our parent company, is based out of Hunt Valley, Maryland, so right outside of Baltimore.
Outside of Baltimore?
Yes.
And so you've got some background in both of those places?
Yes, I'm actually originally from Baltimore, and then just with the different paths of my career, I ended up in Texas and at Ventev out of San Antonio.
And how long have you been with Ventev now?
I've been with Ventev, it'll be 10 years in November.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Wow. So you've seen a lot of changes then in the business and the industry.
Yes. A lot of changes, particularly with the different technology trends, from the different types of wireless technology, from N to AC and now AX, and supporting those different protocols for Wi-Fi and coming up with the products to support those radios that have been coming out based on those technologies.
Fantastic. So tell me a little bit about the process, how that works. Do you guys OEM to these companies and build their boxes for them, or is it always a thing where they're bringing you in on deals, sort of, as a secondary vendor?
A little bit of both. We do some OEM antennas for some of the radio manufacturers, and by radio manufacturers, I'm talking to AP manufacturers. I don't want anyone to get that mixed up, but we do
the access point guys,
but we. Outside of Wi-Fi, we also do some cellular stuff as well, but that's a small percentage of what we do.
So it's mostly Wi-Fi?
Yeah, but our main thrust is Wi-Fi. So we've done some OEMs for some of the AP manufacturers in the past, but mostly right now what we do is based on the access points that they release, we come up with products to support those access points. So for instance, if there's a situation where they need something aesthetically pleasing or they need to hide the access point, we come up with products like that. We like to try to think outside the box to come up with different solutions to support these access points. So we have some innovative solutions in our portfolio.
So speaking of outside the box, when you build an enclosure, for some aesthetic reasons, do you put their entire physical access point in the enclosure, or do you take the guts out and build it into something new?
Right. So we support the entire AP, so we don't take anything apart. We take that actual AP and we'll put it in an enclosure solution, whether it be an outdoor enclosure solution, a ceiling tile enclosure, a hard cap ceiling enclosure solution. We take that access point and we hide it. So no longer, in some cases, you can walk into, say, an enterprise and look up at the ceiling and you won't see an access point. That's what we consider some of our strengths with our solutions. We hide it.
So I want to get on and talk about some of the other stuff you do, but I can't resist. That sounds fascinating. What are some of the craziest enclosures you've seen for hiding these things? Do you have to you're doing Wi-Fi in a zoo and you've got to make them look like rocks or something?
So we do have enclosures that look like rocks.
Rock enclosures?
Yes. We've done what we call right now our wireless bollards. So we actually have bollards. So if you're in a park or anywhere, the lighted bollards, we've come up with designs that look like those, but they hide the Wi-Fi.
But
so they hide
still
the
have a light
access
in
point
them?
and the antenna.
Right.
We've done some. We've worked in conjunction with some lighting manufacturers to design some bollards that do have lights in them, and the Wi-Fi is hidden within the actual bollard. And then we also have some other bollards that are Wi-Fi only that don't have lights in them.
So being a guy who, first of all, obviously I use a lot of Wi-Fi, but just like everyone does, but I also go to a lot of these Wi-Fi and networking shows. One thing that I often do when I walk into a hotel or walk into a store is I'll look up, see if I recognize the brand of access point.
Right.
But you're saying a lot of these are cleverly disguised. It may not look at it. What sort of things might it look like? Are they built into lighting fixtures? Are they built into I don't even know, like wall hangings, sconces, that kind of thing?
Right. So we've looked at a lot of those in the past, and I can go over a couple of them with you that we've actually come out with products for. So imagine walking into a building, and you know how you have the light switch where you turn on the lights, right?
The light switch, yeah.
It's a junction box. So we've designed an antenna that fits into a junction box. So you can take that antenna and you can put it anywhere on the wall. It has articulation of plus or minus 45 degrees, and then the access point is either hidden behind the wall or on the ceiling. So when you come in the room, the only thing you see is a junction box. So it's just a junction box, no big deal. But in actuality, it's actually the antenna that's providing the Wi-Fi coverage in the room.
Now, does Ventev do the final install of these, or do you give that back to the?
Right, so we don't do any installation. We have partners that do that. We just do the actual products.
Right, and then the installers might have to paint it a certain color, or to match a particular decor.
Right. So one of the things that all of our antennas can be is they can be painted, they can be themed. We work with a lot of amusement parks.
Themed antennas.
Yeah, a lot of amusement parks that hide the antennas and they theme them either with colors or whatever the ride is, whatever the theming of the ride is, they theme the enclosures or the antennas the same. So it blends in perfectly, you wouldn't even know. We've even had some that they put like concrete over, so you would think it was actually part of the concrete of the actual ride. It actually looks like concrete. Yeah, it blends right in perfectly. You wouldn't even know unless you look closely. So my thing is whenever I walk into a building or anything, I always try to find the Wi-Fi, and then I'll say, okay, what solution could I come up with to hide that if it wasn't hidden or something like that? So I'm always trying to look to come up with something or some type of design where we can make it either smaller or hide it. For instance, we have a line of what we call small form factor products. And what we try to do is we try to just push the envelope on how small, say, we can make an antenna. Our original antenna, one of our patch antennas, a 6 dBi patch antenna, was a 6 dBi antenna, and it was 8 by 8. So I wanted to see how far we could push the envelope. So we came up with what we called our micro patch, which was about 5 by 5 inches. And then after that, we came up with what I called my nano patch. Which was about 4 by 4 inches. And then after that, we came up with what we call our pico patch, which is actually the size of a business card.
Wow.
So we're always trying to push the envelope, and now in the next quarter, we'll be releasing what I call my femto patch antenna. So all of those names are like, for instance, micro patches.
Can you tell us how big that's going to be?
Yeah.
Or?
Yes. The micro patches, so it's 10 to the minus 6 if you look from an engineering perspective.
Right.
Then the nano patch 10 to the minus 9.
Right.
Then the pico patch 10 to the minus 12.
Is that the business card one?
And the femto is that's the business one. And then the femto is 10 to the minus 15. So that just shows each of them going smaller from a engineering perspective as far as when you're going through the different typologies for.
And how big will the femto patch?
The femto patch will be, it'll actually be a slightly larger, about 3.2 by 3.2. The reason why the Pico is so small is 5 gig only, but the femto patch will be 2.4 and 5, so it'll be dual band design, but it'll be smaller than the other dual band designs.
Right, and I'm not a radio transmission expert, but the lower your gigahertz, you need a larger antenna.
Right, exactly. And all of our designs for Wi-Fi are 2.4 and 5 gigahertz. So the larger, the 2.4 makes the antenna larger. But we got a couple of tricks that we played to make the antenna slightly smaller than what someone would usually think that antenna size should be.
Now, I don't know if this is a segment that you build anything for, but what about sort of hardened devices or devices to withstand temperature extremes, military grade devices? Do you guys do anything in that?
So we don't really do any military grade devices, but we do some class 1, div 1 hardened type of enclosure solutions. So for instance,
I'm a neophyte, so what is class 1, what does that mean?
So those are for situations where you want to have Wi-Fi coverage, say on an oil rig or something that's highly flammable, and you need something that, for instance, if there's a spark, it won't ignite anything. So they put them in these what they call class 1, div 1 hardened solutions. So we actually have enclosures for that to provide to that industry.
Now, what about power systems? You guys make power systems as well?
Yes.
And what does that mean? Is that the power to supply the access point with the power cabling?
Yes, so the power system, so imagine you want Wi-Fi in a parking lot, right?
I always do.
Okay, and the lights are set to come on at a certain time and then go off. And once they're off, there's no power to the poles. So we have power systems that while the lights are on, they charge the battery, and then when the lights go off, it kicks on and still supplies power to the access point. So you'll have coverage 24/7.
So that's a battery system.
Yeah,
as well.
So it's a battery system, battery backup, one of our power systems. And then we do some remote monitoring and some remote systems as well. For instance, if you're doing something, for instance, in an oil and gas industry, a lot of those things are in remote areas, and you need Wi-Fi or coverage. We have battery systems for that'll charge the modem, that'll power the modem that's used out there to deliver signal back. So
here we are, Wireless LAN Professionals 2020. What sort of aesthetics are people looking for this year? What are you hearing out there?
It's not more so what they're looking for in particular, but it's more so what are you supporting, right? So right now, AX is the next technology that's coming out of Wi-Fi 6.
Right.
So,
and is there a different enclosure for Wi-Fi 6 than you would have built for Wi-Fi 5, or is it different antennas?
Well, it's not that it's a different enclosure, but there are different parameters that you have to cover. For instance, some of the newer APs are larger. And if your enclosure isn't large enough, then you have to come up with a larger enclosure to house that access point. And then there's if it's an access point that needs external antennas, how do you provide the antenna for that in an enclosure solution? For instance, one of our big sellers is what we call our colo mounts. And what the colo mounts do is they co-locate the antenna and the access point into a clamshell design. So no longer will you have to look up in an area where you have Wi-Fi and you see the access point and then you see the antenna right next to it. What we've done is we've come up with a design where we co-locate both of them, and we provide articulation for the antenna so that when you mount it, you can precisely get the coverage that you want in the area that you want by moving the arm that has the antenna attached to it. So, coming up with those types of things to support all of the newer APs. Since some of the newer APs are larger, we had to make those colo mounts slightly larger to accommodate that plus the antenna. And then we're always working with new vendors, so we're always coming up with products to support all of the access points that are being released. We like to say that we're vendor agnostic. We don't concentrate on one particular vendor, but we support all vendors.
So finally, tell me about some of those new products. What else is new that's out there? Obviously, you've got the ones where you're trying to hide stuff as well. the class 1 stuff you were talking about. Anything else you want to mention?
Yeah, one of our products that we've come out with, and we're actually doing some revisions to it to come out with different forms of the product, is that everyone is so used to having Wi-Fi from a ceiling down type of coverage pattern. So we've come up with and patented a design that comes from the floor up. So we patented what we call our floor panel antenna. It's a floor tile.
Right.
So it's a raised floor tile that we've embedded an antenna in. So now for all of the customers or all of the architects that want aesthetically pleasing solutions where they don't want to see any APs, they don't want to see anything on the wall, they don't want anything above the ceiling, we've come up with this solution. And for these types of applications, the antennas it's a raised floor type of building, but the antennas are in the floor. And then under the floor, they're doing the air, they're doing all of the cabling, and so that's where we place the access point. So what we have is we have a design that's from the bottom up and not from the top down. Now that type of coverage gets you closer to the client device because you're already closer, and they say the average height that someone holds their client device or their smartphone is 3.5 feet.
So you're closer to the floor than you are to the ceiling.
Right. So we've designed this so that we provide that coverage as closer to the client device.
And now you can turn the power down on the device because you're closer to the antenna.
Yeah, the power's all the way down. Yeah, that.
It's an elegant way to solve the problem. Yeah.
And then also in high density deployments, you have a lot of people. You want that RF cell small because you want to dedicate a certain amount of people to a specific access point. So that enables us to do that as well. So that one is patented, and we've deployed that in a few Fortune 10 companies, and that's one that we're really proud of, and we're doing some improvements for that to support other access point manufacturers as well.
Dennis Burrell, I could probably talk to you about this for another hour because there's so much stuff. It's fascinating stuff to see the other side of Wi-Fi. Right. Everyone here is cloud and software and whatever, but there's this whole other chunk of infrastructure that people really don't spend that much time thinking about. So thank you for joining us and talking about it today.
Right, thank you for having me.
Great to see you.
Thank you.
And we'll be back with a lot more from the Wireless LAN Professional Conference in just a few minutes. So stay with us right here on Live Now.